Hello and welcome to another SIA Partners Data Science video. Today I'm going to introduce you to the time series lab. I'm sure you're wondering what we do in this lab, how it can be useful to you, and where you can find our work. Let's get right into it. First, let me introduce our team of time series enthusiasts. Pierre Leplatois sponsors the lab, and the contributors are Maxime Bataille, Thomas Rousseau, Joachim Dublino, and myself. I would like to thank all the team who made it possible to build the lab. Firstly, how do we organize ourselves? We have a weekly meeting every Monday to follow up on current topics and more regularly if necessary. A follow-up email is also sent every 15 days to the management to ensure the right direction of topics. We have a backlog to organize our tasks, and to share our work, we have a Google Drive and GitLab for our code. I will come back to this in detail later. Our organization, especially on the question of how to contribute to the lab, will be part of the new operational model. Some news will be communicated soon. For now, just contact us. So, what is the lab time series? The lab objectives are to centralize resources for both technical and commercial development, capitalize on the functional bricks already implemented in platform and project to accelerate future development of similar use cases, explore new algorithms and use cases that, once achieved, can power lab blocks like benchmark and modules, and develop new skills in the data SBU. To achieve these objectives, we have divided our lab into blocks. These blocks are obviously connected to each other. First of all, research with studies of new methods to stay at the state of the art and improve our performance on classical use cases like forecasting, classification, clustering, but also technology, methodology, and competitive watch or research paper selection. And also we supervise end of study projects that are research oriented. Then benchmark, which allows to compare methods on different use cases and therefore to know what works best. Focus on the framework implemented will be made later in the presentation. Modules, which are Python packages to develop usable code base and function, then can be easily imported into project or platform. Also focus on our three modules, SIA, data quality, data preprocessing, and modeling will be done in a few minutes, so stay tuned. We have also notebooks for simple examples or tutorials on how to use our packages. Finally, we have an article section to show our expertise on trendy time series oriented topics or on what we do on our lab. And the training part, we also are in charge of developing training to allow consultants who wish to do so to improve their skills on time series subjects. As you will have understood, one of the lab objectives is to become the contact point for all time series oriented topics, both for technical and commercial issues with the centralization of code bricks and slides. This can be an internal interaction through training, communication, and sharing slides to sell our expertise, but also from the intern to the lab with feedbacks from consultants who have worked on a subject around time series. By the way, we will soon be contacting some of you to initiate these feedbacks. This can be interaction with platforms, especially with the import of our pip installable modules. We have a good example to show you afterwards. I won't spoil you more. Now let's go into a little more detail.
So now let's focus on the modules we developed. So in the last few months, we developed a few modules to help us to speed and standardize your time series analysis. So on this slide, you see a very typical workflow of time series forecasting. So first and foremost, you have the pre-processing, outliers filtering, then you have the modeling, and you end up with the post-processing. So for each of these steps, we created a dedicated module. For outliers detection, we created the module SIA data quality. For pre-processing, we created the module SIA data pre-processing. And for modeling, we created the module SIA TS modeling, biological. What about these modules? So these modules are, as I was saying, pip installable. So they are hosted on GitLab. There is always a README file that is well built, so to make it clearer for you. There is an extensive documentation that is automatically generated. You will see that it renders in HTML, nice HTML formats, and you have also some associated tutorials with data to help you start working with the package. So now, use case we managed to tackle with CATS modeling. So Ensoi, one of our clients, wanted an energy forecasting platform. One of the key aspects of the mission was to be able to manage time series forecasting using different machine learning models. So typically, it was into the scope of CATS modeling. I'm going to show you why. So this is the front-end interface that we developed for Ensoi. So on the top, you see that you have a general settings section where you can pre-fill your model. So you can choose the forecasting engine, you can choose the features, the regressors, and you can choose as well the hyperparameters. Then you can create as many models as you want. You run the modeling, and as output of the modeling, you have a table with one row of the table per model, and one model being a machine learning algorithm, some regressors, and some hyperparameters, plus the associated scoring. So the table enable the users to compare the models and select the one that is the most precise for the use case with the select button. So, going forward with the benchmarks. As consultants, a key part of our job is to find new missions. We know that some RFPs are quite frequent among our clients, for instance, energy forecasting. Energy forecasting is both time-consuming and a very technical and tricky topics. Finding and building the best models is often a complicated task. What we find out that was many consultants were doing actually the same things in parallel. So instead of that, we developed a place called benchmarks where the best models are already prepared and set up for you in order to not need to start a new model from scratch with each new mission. So what is this space? So we choose to host this space in our drive. So mainly it's going to be composed of different folders. For first and foremost, the data folder that will contain all the data needed to perform this benchmark. Then the most important folder will be the notebooks. So there will be notebooks with templates that will be reusable by you during when you will want to add a new benchmark. Also, you will have some scripts that will contain some functions useful to go faster with the notebooks, and an important file called benchmark details that will contain one row per model. So once you want to you have managed to perform a new add a new model for a given use case, you will add a row on this benchmark details with the metrics, your features, your regressors, etc. Also, there is a README and a requirements.txt, requirements.txt to help you with the settings of the space. There is also a GitLab repository coming with it, so don't forget to push your notebook on GitLab once you push the notebook on the drive. So how do these notebooks work? So they are quick and so easy to start. there is some code homogeneity and good coding practice to make it more readable. What you will see is that so after you will have some good practice to follow in your notebooks, and once you have finished to work on a model, you will have to add so one row on the benchmark details where you will be able to compare your model with the models of other consultants on the same datasets. So currently, only two benchmarks exist in the space, so renewable energy production forecasting and energy consumption forecasting. So feel free to add a new space in the benchmark space, a new theme, if you think it's useful for it may be useful for other consultants. In the long run, the aim is that these benchmarks are shared in a semi-public way through, for instance, data awards, in order to create some emulation on the topic and to help us in the end improve our algorithm. Do not hesitate to take a look at the GitLab repository, which contains many information in the README especially.
Let's talk about good coding practices. First of all, we try to respect the ECA team's recommendation on the quality of our code with formatter, test, documentation, and continuous integration for our packages. We also have set up a dedicated Git structure for our lab. Let's have a look at it. When you are in the community group, just go to the lab folder. Here you will find the different labs. For now, there is only the lab time series. And when you click on it, you have the choice between a repo for our modules and another one for our example. For the module, you will find the three modules developed and maintained in the lab. So CATS modeling, CATS preprocessing, and CATS data quality. For the example, you will find our benchmark, our tutorial module, and the examples that are presented in our training with a nice README to explain all of it. For example, in the benchmark, don't hesitate to check the README file to understand what are in this repo. Finally, what are the next hot topics? We would like to develop the research part, develop other subjects than forecasting, such as anomaly detection, clustering, classification, or pattern detection. The interesting parts could fit the benchmark, example, and modulus bricks. Write more articles. Actually, start writing articles. 2 will be writing for the first semester. The objective is to write this year at least 4 qualitative articles on our expertise or on trendy time series oriented topics. Become the focal point for time series oriented subjects, whether it's on technical support with our code base, tutorials, examples, or training, but also commercial with the centralization of slides, which is also very important. And as said before, we need your feedback, so we will initiate mini recs with consultants who have done missions around time series issues to get their feedback and improve the content of our lab. And more generally, we need you to contribute to the development of the lab, but also for new ideas or improvements. That was a quick look and an introduction of our lab. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it very helpful. See you soon.